Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Set 4 of Leta vs. Flash at the round of 8 of the ABC Mart MSL. And I was worried for a long time that this was going to be a sweep, a 3-0, but it is not. It is a 2-1. Flash still with the 2-1 advantage, and Leta still on the chopping block and needs to win two more straight. But he showed in the last game that he did have the capability to beat Flash, not just in a Pro League match, but in a Star League. So he is going to be the white Terran at the top left, and Flash is going to be the blue Terran at the bottom right, and we are on Monte Cristo, which so far has lent itself, or has proven itself to be a pretty good map for cheese. Do you think that's what we're going to see?
I think we'll see the standard, what we've been seeing is those forward raxes. Maybe, I could see one of them maybe even 8-raxing it, but I don't think it's going to be like a BBS or anything like that, just because the rush distances are long enough that unless you proxy everything, it gets really difficult to really get a really good cheese on. And I think players have started to suspect it. We saw Bisu catch Flash's cheese on this map, and people have kind of gathered the fact that cheeses are going to be popular, and really, they really look for a lot on this map. So I think forward racks is what we'll see, but I don't think we'll see too much more cheesiness than that. Leta is going to throw down a supply depot, so he's not going to be 8-raxing, and Flash doesn't look like he sent out an early SCV either, so I don't think we're going to see an 8-rax from him either, and both of them look like they're going to do the supply depot, and Leta definitely sending out the early SCV here. He's going to go for very much a forward rax and try and put on some pressure, maybe trying to take advantage of a possible Flash 14cc or something like that, but I think Flash is also going to be doing that forward rax, and I think it would be really hilarious if they built barracks like what ended up being at mirror locations to each other in comparison to each other's bases. This could get pretty entertaining very, very quickly if neither player is able to get Marines back home to defend. It could be Marines on SCVs at both bases.
Yeah, I've actually never seen an early game Terran versus Terran base trade, but there's a first time for everything. Although I doubt that that's going to be the situation in this game, because Flash is just throwing down a bit of a later barracks in his main base. So anyway, the kind of cheese I had in mind was Leta going for a 2-port, because in that last game he showed Flash, oh, you can't count on me going wraiths, you can't just blind counter wraiths. So that kind of, in terms of mindsets, opens him up to maybe going 2-port and having Flash not be as prepared for it as he would have been had he gone for it last game. So that's definitely a possibility. And I loved at about, I think it was like 1 minute or 1 minute 2 seconds, if you rewind your video to check it out, Flash uses a ruler to measure exactly how far he wants his keyboard away from the edge of his desk, and he left the ruler right on the keyboard, and he was forced to move it. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, Flash has done that a bunch of times. I noticed that pretty recently. I noticed him starting doing that. I was kind of curious as to whether other people did too. I've been actually watching people early game trying to see if others would do it, but I don't think I've really seen anyone else pull out a ruler per se to try and do that. So I think he's the only one that really does that per se. We do have the first Marine and a second Marine actually about to join for Leta, and Flash, just like last game, is getting his natural expansion up earlier, is getting that bunker up to defend, and with this high ground he should be able to get this up relatively comfortably. I don't think Leta's going to be crazy enough to try and attack up the ramp and absorb that mischance. It's just too risky for him, so he's just going to back off for now. He probably has a factory up just like last game. It looks like an exact mirror build right now. Game to game, Leta throwing up his natural command center as well, retreating with those Marines, and this time we are going to have a Vulture come out once again, and this time, once he gets rid of this SCV inside of his base, we'll have to see whether he goes Wraiths, and once again we'll see whether Flash does the blind counter like he did last game.
Wow, did you see that guy? I've seen Koreans try to hide their faces when the camera goes on them, but I think that's the first time I've ever seen someone get up and run away. They're so fearful of the camera. He was wearing a suit. I don't know if he's like some celebrity or something, or if that was a joke that I would have gotten had I been living in Korea. I have no idea what
he's playing hooky from work.
Yeah, he probably works on like a different floor from the NBC studio, and he's like, oh crap, I hope my boss isn't watching. That'd be hilarious. But Flash has got a nice economic advantage already. He's turtled himself in a little bit with just the bunker on the high ground, and has gotten his natural expansion up significantly before Leta's, and Leta's got a little bit of a production advantage on his factory, so he's going to have probably only one more factory unit. So definitely this shakes out to be an advantage for Flash. And meanwhile, you can see Flash throwing up a second factory, and as well getting that simultaneous Academy and Armory. So once again, blind countering Wraiths because he just comes to expect them from Leta, from all of Leta's history of going Wraiths.
Yeah, he is. And Leta with that barracks inside of the main might be able to scout it out before he decides to make any play like that. And it looks like he's actually throwing down a second factory. His barracks inside of Flash's main, maybe seeing it right about now, seeing those simultaneous buildings being thrown up. So he's actually going to be pretty happy right now, knowing that Flash has basically wasted some of that money. I mean, he is going to end up using those buildings later on, but right now, at this moment, that's definitely going to be money that Flash is not going to be able to use big time. He's going to probably produce a couple of Goliaths to send out with his force. That is something that he's done in the past. He used to have this little, I called it like the Flash build on TBT. It made no sense, but somehow it worked. He had Vultures, Goliaths, and tanks, and somehow made this push out that worked properly and was like a solid counter to basically every opening that Terrans did until everyone just started going to that super uber macro phase. And I think we'll see a similar kind of thing now where he'll try and take advantage of the armory and at least get a couple Goliaths out.
Yeah, Goliaths are not as bad as people sometimes make them out to be. They only cost 50 gas, and you can make them from a factory without a machine shop. So if your production it doesn't necessarily reflect your economy at any point, if you've got a bigger economy than you can allow production for, a Goliath is a great way to spend some of that extra resources instead of just having it sit in the bank. And it also takes out floating buildings. Which are very important for tanks spotting each other, because of course tanks see or shoot longer than they can see. And actually, here comes Leta in with a couple of vultures, and that bunker only has a single marina. So Flash was just hoping that the threat of that bunker would be more effective. But the barracks goes down for Leta, and he takes out about 3 SCVs. Flash getting harassed a little, but Leta's going to need to build a barracks ASAP because he's going to want to get some more factories up. I believe he's still on only 2 or 3.
Yeah, always seen his 2. Maybe he has a 3rd. We could see him throw down a starport or something like that, but right now, he definitely needs to be careful of this push out from Flash. He has rigged those 2 Goliaths along with those tanks, and that is going to be enough that he can basically AWOC, and unless there's just a ton of mines, he's going to be able to deal with them with those units. Terran units can kill mines with just 2 hits, and they do a pretty solid job just wandering around the map on their own as long as you're somewhat careful. And I think he knows that there's going to be more mines, but he's not entirely sure. Maybe trying to set up a contain here. We do have Leta on the high ground right outside of Flash's natural. Flash may try to do the same back to Leta, take that high ground, and make that that reinforcement route, that rally route, a little bit more hairy for Leta to pass through. And let's take a look at what Flash is doing. He is getting a starport. Looks like he's getting some more factories, and Leta countering with the starport of his own with the control tower. We'll see whether this is for Wraiths or if he's going to go back to building some dropships. Would be very, very interesting to see. We haven't seen heavy dropship play. We saw some in the well, 2 games ago in La Mancha. We saw some vulture drops that actually did very, very well. So I actually kind of want to see Leta maybe go for some vulture drops. I think they would do very, very well, and bringing troops back through a roundabout all the way through your natural expansion, past that barracks, through those narrow chokes, could actually buy him a good solid amount of time to do some damage with some vulture drops.
Yeah, although it looks like that's not the type of game that Leta's setting himself up for. I think he's he's powering out or he's building a lot of tanks, and he's adding machine shops to I think all of his factories. So I think he's going to do almost non-stop tank production and have very few supporting units. And that type of unit composition lends itself more to doing just a really powerful push towards Flash's main base, and just relying on a little bit of a superior tank count to help you break through. But he has produced a dropship, so maybe he's going to try to distract, bring some of Flash's forces back, and then do a powerful push. But Flash, anticipating this, has already produced a Wraith, but that Wraith not really in a good position to be able to catch this dropship. The first drop is going to go off without a hitch, and maybe this Wraith is going to be able to chase down the dropship, but the 4 vultures, or 3 vultures, I don't know, yeah, 4 vultures actually, are going to get into the main base, but very bad luck coming in just at a production cycle. Flash just happened to have units pop right out of his factories, so this could have done a lot more damage. It looks like 3 SCVs have gone down, and he's gonna waste his vultures targeting Oh, he actually saves his dropship. I thought the Wraith was going to be able to catch up to that, but he loses control of his vultures, just stops paying attention to them, and they just die while taking a couple shots at a tank.
Yeah, it does, and he did manage to keep his Wraith alive, though. That was a nice play by Leta, building that turret as a forward turret to try and defend himself, basically ideally for that purpose. And right now we do have contains going on once again for both players, and Flash sneaking a base in the bottom left, Leta sneaking a base in the top right, and he also has this other floated command center. So Flash at this moment may actually think that he's delaying the third base of Leta, when in reality it is only a minor delay, since Leta is getting that top right about the same time as the bottom left. So Leta, if he can get another base going, that would definitely be very advantageous for him. Could be a sneaky way for him to get up a base. With that dropship, I'm actually surprised he didn't try and take the 12 o'clock base, drop off an SCV, mine out the blocking minerals, and drop that that command center in that sort of position. But instead, he looks like he's just going to leave it in the middle for scouting information. And some vultures going down to the bottom left are going to take down this SCV. Unfortunately, the command center is already up, so he's probably going to place some mines, but unfortunately, he's not going to be able to stop that base from going up and really delay it at all. Flash responding with some Goliaths and tanks as well to take this down, and it looks like those vultures already placed all their mines, so he's not even going to be able to do that little ploy. Having some trouble getting his vultures out here, and he's going to run right into more of Flash's units, but Flash looks like he's taken the 9 o'clock position, which is 9 times out of 10 the top left player's base, so we could actually see this map split top and bottom rather than left and right like it usually does. So this is definitely turning out to be kind of a more creative match, and definitely progressing a little bit more differently than we normally see on this.
Yeah, this is a very peculiar play, but I've got to say I'm a fan of it. It looks like Flash has produced a dropship, but he's got an aerial escort force of a couple of Wraiths too. So he might be able to get in and do some harassment. But this is very, very interesting how the map has been split. And also very interesting is that if you'll take a look at the mini-map, you can't even see the 12 and 6 o'clock bases. And at no points have either players just wandered up towards there, although, as I say, it looks like the dropship passes over the 6 o'clock for Flash. But there are more bases there, so we might be seeing this map kind of get split. In which case, there's 5 bases along the like top U and bottom U of the map, and then 2 central expansions that might come to be the crux of the game. Who can actually secure those? But those look almost impossible to take. And if this map gets split top versus bottom, the temples in the very center of the map will come into a huge effect, because if they stay up, there's only 2 ways to get from the top to the bottom, but if they go down, that opens up another path. So we could see, maybe if one player isn't paying attention to those temples, like Leta could break through and sneak in and do a lot of damage, or Flash could do that to Leta, and that's going to be a really interesting dynamic later in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like both players are willing to split the map for now, though we do see Leta dropping off some SCVs at the 12 o'clock. I believe he's taking the 3 o'clock base as well. So this map getting split pretty evenly. I think they're going to be able to get 6 bases. I believe those inside bases are actually on each player's halves of the map, so they should be able to take those with relative ease, as long as they don't lose any sort of aerial battle. And it looks like Flash now coming in with 3 ports worth of Wraiths, catching Leta's Wraiths. Only 1 remaining for Leta right now. Is it going to go down? And the scan has finally ended, so it does live for half a second longer until Flash scans again and finishes off. So Leta's lost his entire force. Flash with 3 ports right now, pumping Wraiths at the moment, only with that 1 dropship in order to take the 6 o'clock position. And Leta, I believe, has produced a second dropship. I'm not sure about that, but I believe he produced a second dropship in order to drop units at the 12 o'clock position. I'm not sure what happened to that first, or maybe it was the same one. It looks like Flash now in the middle of the map is blowing up those temples as you suggested, but Leta is there, so he knows that this is going to happen, and he's got to be aware of this possible route going through. And I think Flash may be looking to use his Wraith superiority, so if there's 3 avenues of attack, his Wraiths with their superior mobility can help either of those fronts, any of the 3, whereas Leta with only ground units will be forced to defend at each point and not be able to reinforce quite as quickly as Flash. So that is definitely something to watch out for, is the mobility and the speed of reinforcements that those Wraiths can bring to play with 3 different avenues of attack.
Yeah, and Leta actually building a lot of turrets all across the top of the line separating his half of the map, and it was actually Leta, not Flash, who got the idea to break down all of those rocks, and Flash might not have scouted it if not for his wraiths. He just happened to wander over there and see that the tanks were shelling it down. So Flash got there in time and closed that gap that Leta was trying to open, closed it with some siege tanks of his own. But now there's a really interesting dynamic, and oh no, this is terrible. Flash is actually, or Leta's actually trying to push up through that really narrow choke in the middle, dropping all of his tanks, but it looks like he's got all his entire force there, whereas Flash is spread out across 3 points, 3 avenues, so Leta actually breaking through really effectively, and he's going to be able to probably deny this expansion that's at the left, but he's got no anti-air, save for these 2 Goliaths coming in right now, but there are way too many wraiths, so Flash is going, or Leta's going to have to turn around with all of his tanks and come back there when he's got a lot of Goliaths to deal with that. That was a beautiful attack, except he didn't have nearly enough anti-air.
No, he didn't. And that's pretty unlucky. I'm surprised that he didn't scan there before coming in with the dropships and seeing that those wraiths were there, maybe tried to hit on a different location. That's a little bit of a mistake, I think, on Leta's part. Maybe he thought that he had enough Goliaths to bust through there, but there really were a ton of wraiths there. I think we've got, is that 5, 6 starports? 6 starports right now from Flash. So he's going all out, full-blown, mass wraiths. Leta, with all these turrets, are definitely going to help. He's going to have to respond properly. Hopefully he scanned the main, and he is able to realize that he's going to need a lot more Goliaths. He's got a lot of tanks, and as long as he can keep those tank count higher than Flash's, if he can respond with Goliaths in order to counter the Wraiths, he could end up in a decent spot. He just has to be careful with his dropship force. Now that he has invested in it, I think he should continue to try to use it. He just has to be careful that he doesn't run into those Wraiths, and with 5, 6, whatever number of scans, he should have more than enough ability to keep track of where these Wraiths are and make sure that he doesn't run into them. And he is loading up a lot of Goliaths right now into those dropships along with those tanks, so he should be able to drop enough units to deal with a pure Wraith counter. He's just going to have to pick his spot right now with those dropships, and we'll see whether the metagame really has switched into the power of mass Wraiths and aerial units, or if dropships can make a revival. Leta is going to try and make a revival here with his dropship play, coming in here at the 9 o'clock position with the drop and with ground forces. This is a very much what we used to see all the time, and it is going to be a successful attack. He needs to get a scan in order to defend all of his units here. Most of his Goliaths once again have gone down. Did Flash target them, or did it just happen to go that way? But all of the Goliaths appear to be dead, so once again he is going to be pushed back by mass Wraiths despite having a pretty decent attack.
This is unbelievable by Flash. He's gotten 2-1 upgrades for his air already. Leta's still on 1-0 for his ground. And Flash, it looks like he's just going to try to win this game purely with Wraiths. Which normally we wouldn't expect to see, but he's doing it really effectively. He's got enough that he's just about one-hitting turrets and taking down Goliath really quickly, and he's pushing into the natural expansion. Leta coming back with tanks to try to defend this, and he is going to be able to destroy the tanks at his own natural, but the Wraith's just doing so much damage to his tanks. Leta needs a lot more factories producing nothing but Goliaths, because if he just clicks on one of Flash's Goliaths, he sees 2-1. It is clear that Flash is in this Wraith thing for the long haul. He really needs to get out a lot more Goliaths to just counter those Wraiths and protect his tanks. He can't win this game with tanks alone. He needs a lot more Goliaths than he's been producing, and he needs them everywhere right now. Probably some Valkyries would be a good investment as well.
Yeah, I think they would be to help those Goliaths. If the Valkyries get a couple, just 1 or 2 volleys off, even though we won't kill the Wraiths, they'll weaken them enough that it'll just take 1 or 2 more Goliath hits to knock them down and really make those Goliaths just that much more effective. Just 1 or 2 Valkyries can really make your Goliaths that much more effective. And it looks like Flash now moving across the middle of the map where the temples used to be, going to try and split Leta in half. And if he can start taking down bases on the right side, maybe take down the top right base or something like that, that could end up being a huge advantage for him. It looks like instead he's just going to go straight for the natural, going to keep on this contain, and is really going to try and put his foot on Leta's neck and really put the pressure on as much as he can. Leta trying to come in from behind with tanks. Unfortunately, he has once again not brought Goliaths in with them, and that sort of air is going to really hurt him and could end up costing him the game once again. Wraiths just able to take down tanks so quickly when they're in these numbers. 2-1 upgrades, as we mentioned, on them, and a lot of Goliaths in the natural expansion, but nothing here at the 12 o'clock base, and Wraiths are going to take this down, and things are looking very gloomy right now for Leta. I can't I think it's coming close to the end right now. He's trying to SCV bomb on these tanks, and he's actually doing a pretty good job of it. A lot of them aren't quite damaged, but now here come the Wraiths coming back home, and they're gonna help these tanks to try and counter all these Goliaths. And it looks like the Wraiths are actually taking a ton of damage, while the tanks are sitting there picking at all of the Goliath counts. So that army composition actually working out for Flash quite well, bringing in some more reinforcing tanks as well, and Leta not able to break the front, and I think this is going to bring the game very near to a close. I think Leta is just running out of steam right now, running out of reinforcements route, running out of SCVs at that 12 o'clock base, and I think he might be close to out of ideas.
Yeah, Leta let Flash advance way too far with his tanks uncontested. He needed to be out there, further out there with his tanks and Goliath force a lot earlier, because right now he's forced to engage in a terrible position. He's forced to try to walk out with his Goliaths and deal with the Wraiths, because right now he's contained at his natural, which cuts him off from all three of his additional expansions, which is 3 of his 4 mining bases at this point. So he is trying to use dropships to gain a little bit more mobility, but dropships are going to be so vulnerable at this point. It was a good idea for him to start dropping on top of the tanks with SCVs, but he definitely needed to be repositioning his tanks to a point where outside of his natural expansion, so his units could actually get out of the natural and distribute themselves across the entire map. Being contained is not something you want to do, pretty obviously, and this is just beautiful play by Flash, just like picking his opponent to death with Wraiths. And in my StarCraft career, I've lost to just about every single strategy you could imagine, and the worst to lose to is Wraiths, because each one deals like 0 damage per hit, air versus ground, and it's just like getting killed by paper cuts. It's terrible and humiliating, and I think that's what's going to happen to Leta quite shortly in this game.
The great pew damage, and Leta looks like he's disheartened. Looks like he's about ready to GG. You saw him like even take his hands off the keyboard there for a second. He might try this one last push out. If he doesn't break out here, it's basically over. Bringing along SCVs as well. Most of his units dying before they're even able to get a shot off. Coming out, finally getting into the tank line. All of them are dead. And CJ enters Leta, forced to GG, being outplayed by Flash, trying to revive the dropship play. Unfortunately, Flash's new age mass Wraith build absolutely terrorizing him, and Flash going to advance to the semifinals with a score of 3 games to 1.
Yes, Flash with 3-2 Wraiths, able to take that game pretty easily. That was probably, of the 4 games, the least close. So Flash takes it 3-1, and he's going to go ahead and sign those shirts. I would pay anything for one of those shirts. That's probably going to be worth a lot on eBay. It's been a pleasure to cast this, and that leaves just one more round of 8 match left. Mind versus Hydra. I'm looking forward to that. How about you?
Definitely, it's the former MSL champion. Well, you know, last season's reigning MSL champion Hydra, and Mind, who has definitely been on top of his form recently. So I think that we're in for an exciting series, and we will try to bring that to you as soon as we can. GG's, folks.